Hello and welcome to the quick video on this thing here. This is the Heewing Hunter HU27. Now I've seen loads of these kinds of models made out of foam board that you put together that you can fly around, and this is one that I thought, you know what, let's get it in. It's coming into the summer months, let me get one in and try it out. If it's really good, then my friends could also get them and we can use it potentially for even things like the FPV Combat system. If the FPV Combat system isn't something you've heard of, go and check it out. I'll put a link down below. Now this one is from Heewing, and the reason that I got this one is because I am a fan of Heewing. They're making some absolutely fantastic models at the moment, and this is one of their older things, so I thought I was reasonably safe getting it in. However, it's not all plain sailing, as the manual in particular is very, very basic. So I thought I would take the time to just show you how I've set mine up. Maybe you've got one of these already, or you've been thinking about one, because there are some tips and tricks. If I turn it over and remove the bottom plate, I haven't glued mine in because I wanted to be able to show you this when I'd finished all of the testing. And you can see how much it's been flown. It's absolutely covered in bits of field. There is a little stabilizer in here, and that stabilizer has multiple flight modes. The battery goes here at the front, the speed controller, the motor and the prop, and then you have the two servos that control the linkages, and the linkages control the ailerons and the elevator, making them both elevons, and that's the way that it flies. In terms of the building, of actually putting the pieces of foam together, the foam all comes on this kind of foam board. It comes in a couple of pieces, and what you have to do is just use a very sharp craft knife to cut them off, and it's pretty obvious how they go together if you've looked at the pictures on the box. So that bit isn't tricky. Good old hot glue, I found, is the simplest way to put it together, and it's pretty robust. It isn't very, very heavy. This one has nosed in quite a few times, and just a quick bead of hot glue will get it all back in one piece. However, there are a couple of issues that I'll go through with you, and if you're going to build yours, you can avoid making the same mistakes. The first thing is that the printing will come off. I'm not sure if you can see that there. With the hot glue, the printed surface will pull off. It's also pulled off by all of the servos, but I'll talk about that in a minute. When you cut the pieces out of the foam board, make sure that wherever you make the cut, it's completely flat, because lots of these pieces have to go together and you don't want to have big gaps between them. You can just about, I guess, see there the light coming through. Even if you're super careful, they won't sit flush. So having something like a hot glue gun is great because it gives a really nice fit and finish. The motor mount on mine didn't line up super well. I've had to cut a few shims out of the spare bit of foam to make it fit. So that wasn't as cute as I wanted it to. And the prop connector on mine is connected with two screws. In the images on the manual, it's a little nut, which is actually a better idea. The issue is that if I break this prop, trying to get a screwdriver into those two screws is going to be incredibly difficult to replace it. I don't think that's a particularly good idea. So the reason that the servos have had to be installed twice is the servos only work one way round. And what I mean by that is that the flight controller stabilizer is super basic. There's kind of one connection for your S bus. I will talk about the radio and the channels in a moment. And then you have the two plugs on each side. I assumed that when you put the stabilizer in, the connection on that side would be for the servo on that side, but it kind of didn't work exactly like that. So be super careful. I would actually plug the servos in and just power everything. Before you actually hot glue the servos in, make sure they're moving in the right way, because it's kind of all set up from the factory, but there's nothing about testing that before you hot glue your servos in and then find that you have to swap them round in order for the direction to be the right way for your controls. Channel order on the radio needs to look like this. It needs to be set for aileron, elevator, throttle and rudder, and then a mode channel, nothing on channel 6, and then channel 7 is your throttle cut. Be wary of the throttle cut. I think it works backwards. On mine, a low value is the throttle is active, whereas in most places that low value is the default one that the radio starts up in. So be super careful about that and test it. But that's the channel order that you're going to need. So here are my tips for this. I would say there's probably better models that go together and give you a similar thing to this. And I would probably not recommend this particular one from Heewing. The gain on the stabilizer is okay if you fly it on 2S. It will fly on a 3S battery, but you'll find that the model will vibrate because the gain is super high for a 3S battery. And unfortunately, that also means that the gain is adjustable. The controller itself is super basic, and there should be a lot more in the manual on how that's all set up. And again, the channel order on the radio, which isn't in the manual, is AETRM. Nothing on channel 6, and then throttle cut on channel 7. Unfortunately, this is one of those models that is let down by something I was talking about the other week, which is a really poor manual. If the manual was better, then I might have had a better build experience, and then that would have probably meant that some of the early crashes that I had with it worked fine as well. Things in there about what the flight modes do. So for example, I found this is easiest to fly where you have full stabilization and support turned on, which is on the low channel position for the flight modes, but explaining more about what the 3 modes are and how you set those up would have been great to have in the manual. This has been a full thing to build and fly, but this isn't something that I'm going to be flying regularly and probably not something I would recommend. But if you have something similar to this, a model that you fly that you really love, that this kind of style made out of this board, I'd love to know, because I'd like to get a couple in, because I think again they would be fantastic for FPV Combat. Thank you for spending your time today watching that video. You can find me in all the usual places on social media, and if you're trying to learn about a subject, then check out the playlist. All of my videos are organized into easy to follow playlists that, if you're trying to learn a topic, will take you from the basics right the way through to some pretty advanced stuff.